I'm going to be teaching you guys how to do a seamless teleport system like in a human fall flat, where when you fall out to the world it will seamlessly teleport you to the top of the world, so you just fall back into the level. This is the product. So to set up the scene, I just did a normal platform which has a teleporter that brings you out to here in the teleport point. It'll just teleport you here, so it'll drop you out of the world, and it's not necessary. You can just fall out of the world, but it's just a nice way to do it. So the teleport script goes here. It's basically what all it does is it gets the teleport point, which is this up here, and on trigger enter, once you enter this box collider, its trigger has to be set. It will run this code, and basically it passes through a parameter with which gets the collider passes through. So this character controller has a rigid body, and it will get this rigid body basically, and it will compare if the person that passes through has a player tag. If it does, it will get the transform of the person that passes through, and it will set it to the teleport point. Very simple. Then there's this is very crucial to put in, otherwise it will bug out. So in older versions of Unity, this was automatically, it would automatically always check for transforms, and it would automatically sync it. So it's very crucial that you put in physics.sync transforms, because the newer version of Unity doesn't automatically sync transforms anymore, because it's very taxing on the system. So this is just a very nice way of doing it, which it just makes it run better. I'm bad explaining stuff, so yeah. Alright, so I have this. So the thing that you guys will need is a serialized field private object. You can make this public, but it's just good practice to use serialized field private object. And basically it's just an array of game objects. So these two square brackets stands for an array called entities. So the array is called entities. This is the respawn height. So it's just like the amount of units. It's just the amount of units that you want to respawn upwards in. So say 200 meters in the sky. The fall threshold is basically how far you want to fall until you respawn. And then at the start when the game starts up, when you hit play, it's going to go to the entities, and it will get game objects with the tag player, and it will save it into the array. So on update, I have a for each loop. A for each loop basically means that for each object in the array, it will run the code. So for each game object, and then this is just a name to give it. So it could be anything. It could be other. It literally could be anything. But I just use entity. For each entity in the entities array up here. So for each game object in the entities array, if the entity transform dot position dot y, which is basically just this here. So this y, if it is less than or equal to the negative of the fall threshold. The negative doesn't have to be there, but it just makes it a bit easier, because down here, if I do the fall threshold, I could just do 200 instead of negative 200. If that makes sense. Simple maths. If I did negative, it would actually do a plus, and I'd have to go upwards of 200. if that is true, then it runs this code, and basically what all this does is the entity.transform.position is equal to the respawn points that I have set up. I'll go over that in a second. So the respawn points in the array, it will generate a random number between 0 and the respawn points count, which basically means, say if there's 2 entities in the array, it will do 0 to 1, a random number between 0 to 1, and then it will get the transform dot position of it, and it will add a new vector tree. With a vector tree basically is just a direction, if that makes sense. So this is X, this is Y, and this is Z, and on the Y it's going to plus the respawn height, and then it will sync the transforms like I mentioned earlier. Up here you have serialized field private list respawn points. So I have a list here. I'm not 100% sure, but I think the list is the best practice over an array. But the reason there's an array here is because you cannot store this method. It does not store in a list, it stores in an array. So just use list for this. As far as I know, it's best practice. But anyway, list inside this field is basically just saying I only want to store a transform object, and I want to name it as a respawn point. So down here, basically the entity.transform respawn points. So what it'll do is down here there's respawn points. You just add whatever respawn point you have. So say you have 2 respawn points, you press 2 and you just drag in the respawn points. These are the respawn points I have, 4. And here it will generate a random number. Like I said previously, it will generate a random number and it will pick randomly one of these respawn points to respawn you at. I'm not 100% sure if I explained this properly. I'm not really great at explaining, but this will leave you up with this. And if you look as you're falling, it will fade out. And if you look down, it didn't even feel like you got teleported. There was no jump cut or anything. Now, there's probably more, like, 101 different ways of doing this, but this is just the best way I figured out. And the best way of doing this really is adding fog or clouds. I'm not really sure how to add fog at the moment, but fog or clouds is the best way of doing it. Because right now, in order for me to achieve what I have, I'll just show you 2 seconds. On the camera, I have the far distance to 150. Now, this isn't great because that means in a normal game it wouldn't, it wouldn't work 100%. There's multiple ways of doing, of achieving it, where you can just change the far distance to when you're falling to 150.